What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're going to be going over a bunch of different running backs, a lot of camp news, a lot of maybe situations that may have changed, but really just my overall take on a bunch of different running backs. Can't go over all of them though, so if you want to see my take on every player, my exact rankings on them, you can check that out at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But gotta start today's video off with the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat was in the fantasy playoffs last season, weeks 14, 15, and 16, which defense scored the most points. The answer was Minnesota Vikings. Yes, I know we did it just last week, but guess what? Most of you still got it wrong. And then Greg McNally was the first one to get it right, though. Today's stat works off the exact same theme. During the fantasy playoffs last season, who was the highest scoring running back? So, let's do some running backs. And first up, we've got Darrell Henderson. Really not the correct time for Henderson to get hurt. There's never a good time, but this was probably the worst. He might not be a rookie, but he definitely needs those reps, right? Because he didn't play all that much last season, and he is still coming off the ankle injuries, and he needed to prove that he should be the guy over Akers. And missing time right now is not going to help with that situation. And that's on top of the fact that it's a mild hamstring injury. And we've said a bunch on this channel that hamstring injuries are the worst. Like, obviously, we prefer to get a hamstring over like a torn ACL. Like, I'm not saying it's the worst injury you can have, but it is more severe than the amount of time he will miss, because that is going to linger down the line. He's going to be at elevated risk to get another hamstring injury. But like I said, it's not even just the hamstring. It's holding off Akers. He can't do that from the sidelines. And so Akers is going to get an opportunity to pass him on the depth chart. So I have taken Henderson off of the targets list. I've dropped him in the rankings. Not to the point where you just can't possibly draft him, but to the point where it's much less likely that you will. I have moved Akers up just a tad, not very much though, because I'm not completely sold that he can just take this job. And I do want to see some positive news out of camp surrounding him. Maybe there is news, today, tomorrow, the next day that comes out and it's like, yep, with Henderson gone, Akers just looks like the clear lead back. I'll move him up even higher. But I kind of like where I have him right now. It's the running back 27. I believe it's 2 spots of ACR and 1 spot above ADP. So pretty much right where he's going. I think if you need a running back at that spot, he's a solid pick. If you're wondering about Henderson, 40. Have him at the running back 40 now. So that was a drop of, I don't know, like 7 or 8 spots. Patriots backfield, kind of need to go over that one. 3 fantasy relevant running backs, or I guess, like we'll talk about, only 2 fantasy relevant running backs. But Sony being out is going to impact everyone, right? I mean, he was the clear lead back over the last 2 seasons. It's going to impact things when that player is on the sideline. So let's go over him first. As of recording this, he has not returned to practice yet. He had the foot surgery in May. It's possible that he doesn't start the season on the active roster, but doesn't make the PUP. So maybe they're like, we don't want him to be out for the 6 weeks. We're not going to put him on the PUP. But he's not going to be playing to start the season. It seems like he's not going to return to practice before the season starts. If that happens, he's undraftable. Honestly, because there's no way that Harris is going to have just no role again like he did last season, and that'll make Sony useless in fantasy. Because think about it. The last 2 seasons, Sony Michel has had 209 and 247 carries respectively, right? And that's only resulted in the running back 31 and 38 in points per game. So his best case scenario is that you can barely use him in the flex on a pretty mediocre team. We're not going to be doing that, right? So we're targeting Harris because every report out of camp seems to indicate that it is his job to lose. Apparently, he's looked great on the ground, really good in pass protection. He's excelling in the receiving game, so they're actually going to use him in that area. So Harris has significantly risen up my rankings. He is someone I have listed as a target, well above ECR, well above ADP. I think you need to be going out and getting him in all formats. As for James White, this impacts White in like 2 different ways that are like opposites. It's kind of weird. So Sony being out means that he'll probably see the field more. which is a good thing for White. But if you're a James White owner, you would prefer Sony be playing over Harris because Harris can catch. And so there will definitely be drives where usually James White went in to replace Sony. Well, now they're just going to keep Harris on the field, and so White then loses those snaps. So it's kind of a weird thing. Like, he gains snaps from Sony being out, but he loses them because Harris is a good receiving back. Overall, White's not really the player I look to target. Maybe in a full PPR league, I think it's completely fine because he's going to have those receptions. But anything less than that, honestly, I would just avoid, because there's really no path. Like, even if Sony stayed out and then like Harris got hurt, you're probably still looking at Rex Burkhead taking work on the ground, and James White he's just not going to have a role on the ground. He's very inconsistent with the touchdowns, because like, when are you supposed to predict a James White touchdown? So best ball leagues, he's fine. Full PPR, he's fine. Other than that, probably wouldn't be touching White. So to clarify everything, absolutely not on Sony. Target Harris everywhere. James White, best ball in PPR leagues. Next up, we got to talk about Kenyan Drake. Right, gave us all a heart attack a few days ago when he comes out in a walking boot. Okay, that's sick. That's really nice. Just show up in a walking boot and don't tell us. But since then, reports all seem to be that he's fine. So he came out on Twitter. He said that he's fine. We see Kingsbury. His exact quote was, "It's nothing more than nicks and bruises," which is almost certainly a lie. Like, you got to realize these coaches lie all the time. There is just no way that they're putting every player who gets a nick and a bruise in a walking boot, right? Like, I know Kenyan Drake isn't just every player to them, but it's more than that, right? It's not just he's got a cut, so they put some Neosporin on it in a walking boot. Like, it's something more. Fact of the matter is, though, everyone who's come out in this situation seems to be not concerned at all. And they've said he's at zero risk of missing week 1. So I think that's what we just need to assume. We just need to say, hey, maybe he's an elevated risk going forward with some sort of like foot sprain, but we got to think he's out there in week 1. He's their guy. There's no indication that he's not. And so I'm not changing the ranking. If he just like doesn't return to practice for a long time moving forward, maybe we change that. But as of right now, I just think you got to keep targeting him. He was the running back 3 in points per game after joining the Cardinals. They're going to have more scoring opportunities this season. They'll have an even better defense, so there's going to be more positive game scripts. I just think he's a fantastic play. My running back 10, 12th overall player, because basically the only wide receivers I have in the top like 15 are Michael Thomas and Adams. So running back 10, 12th overall player. I think he's a late first, early second round pick, and he's a guy I like pairing with Miles Sanders, with Joe Mixon, guys like that. Next up, we're going to talk about the Raiders, another guy you could pair Kenyan Drake with Josh Jacobs. But they now currently have Jacobs, Jalen Richard, Lynn Bowden, and Theo Riddick. And it's really this Theo Riddick signing that had a lot of people worried. I can assure you it means nothing for Jacobs. One thing we need to just look at is these backups. So we got Jalen Richard has played 64 career games. He's been over 10 carries once. One time. And that's actually at least 10 carries. So 10 carries or more, one time. Theo Riddick, he has not had more than 7 carries in a game since 2018. Lynn Bowden is a hybrid player who the always positive Gruden has recently described as a project. So right off the bat, we know Josh Jacobs is going to get all of the carries, literally all of them. He was on pace for 297 last season, meaning he was getting the exact same volume on the ground as Zeke and Derrick Henry. This kid is going to push for the league lead in carries. And because of that volume, he was running back 13 in points per game, even with 0 third down targets. 0. He did not see a single third down target last season, running back 13 in points per game. So here's the thing. He's not going from a player who was getting third down work to now having a reduced role in that area. He already had no third down work. And so he was still 0.9 points per game behind Kamara. So we know he can produce without the targets, but what happens if he gets them? We've seen a report from The Atlantic that he should easily double his receptions. Gruden said he wants to get him on the field in third downs. Jacobs himself said he wants to catch 60 passes. We see reports from ESPN that they are going to get him more involved in the receiving game. So this isn't just one report, just one off from some random beat writer. Every news outlet is reporting this. The coach is reporting this. He's reporting this. The most likely outcome is honestly that he sees more work on third downs. And it makes sense, right? Because why on earth would you bring in these one-dimensional running backs on third downs? It makes no sense because the defense is like, oh, well, they're passing. You know, it was 3rd and 5. Maybe they ran a draw. Nope, they're definitely passing on this play. So his range of outcomes is insane because the high end is running back 3. I mean, I don't think he'll pass Barkley and McCaffrey on just like if we said everyone plays 16 weeks, obviously they can get hurt. But if everyone played 16 weeks, he's probably not outproducing them in points per game. But everyone else, I mean, honestly, Jacobs has that in his ceiling if they're going to use him on third downs. And since we know his floor, we kind of saw it last season, which is crazy because he was so good. But we saw his floor last season because he had no third down work. They weren't honestly that great in scoring. They're going to improve this season. They have a better offense this season. He's going to be better, and he's going to produce where his ADP is. So I know early in the summer, I was a little bit off him because I was scared a little bit of his injuries, which are still a concern, but they're not so big that we can't draft him. But mostly just we were wondering, what is this work going to be in the receiving game? I'm pretty convinced at this point that he's going to see it, and so he is just another running back going in this late first, early mid-second round range that you just got to be taking these guys. I'm going to talk about it to end this video. You need to be taking these running backs in that range. It's not worth taking the wide receivers. Next up, we've got the Tampa Bay backfield. So Ronald Jones, Vaughn, LeSean McCoy. To be honest, no one's running away with this one. The most likely outcome in my eyes seems to be that Ronald Jones is going to play on most of the early downs. We will see Vaughn get some work. We will see McCoy get some work, more when they're down and it's technically a second down, but it's pretty clear they're going to throw the ball. McCoy is definitely their best pass catcher and pass blocker, so he should be in on third downs. And if we look at Vaughn, he's going to start the season with a very, very small role on the offense, playing mostly special teams. And now that could change midway through the season. Maybe they want to shift away from McCoy and give Jones more work. Maybe they look at Vaughn, who's now improving, and they give him more work on early downs. So it's kind of tough to know how this backfield is going to look halfway through the season. But to start, I think that's what we're basically looking at. And to me, that means Vaughn's an avoid. Like, you just can't draft Vaughn at this point because since we know he's going to start slow, he's going to be dropped. Like, there's going to be someone in your league who's like, I like Vaughn. I think he's going to be the guy. And then he's going to go out there and he's going to get like less than 5 points each game for the first 3 weeks, and they're going to drop him. So if you are someone who likes Vaughn, realize that he's going to be free in a few weeks. So just take him there if you really want to stash him. McCoy's fine, but like if we look at what he did on Kansas City last season, the dream spot, he was just okay. And he's probably going to have some good weeks, but you're never really going to know when they're coming. The upside isn't that high because there's basically no way he becomes the featured back. So a fine late round pick, but not typically the type of late round pick that we like to target. Jones is the best pick of the group because we know the touchdown upside is there if he's getting this early down work. We know that he's not going early enough to where we need these receptions, but he was pretty good on a per reception basis last season. We know he is not good in pass protection, and he is not good at actually catching the ball. But once he catches the ball, I guess he was good last year. So he'll get some receptions, but at least getting that early down work on this offense with the touchdowns is going to be valuable. So he's the one that you would want. I do have him as a target. I don't have him as like an aggressive target. You know, I have him a little bit above ADP and ECR, but it's not just crazy. You don't just have to go out and get him everywhere. But honestly, that's kind of how I see the backfield. Jones the target, Vaughn the void, McCoy, I don't know, he's running back 55, 14th round grade. So do with that what you want. If you want to take him in the 14th round, go for it. You don't really need to though because the upside isn't crazy. Final backfield today we'll go over is the Jets, and haven't talked about Bell in a while, I don't think. So He comes off the board in roughly the early to mid 4th round, running back 20. I have him as running back 23, early 5th round grade. Don't really love his value. Not technically an avoid because, I don't know, 3 spots behind where he's going as a running back. That's not really someone you're avoiding. The thing with him is that there is significant opportunity cost, not even at running back. So there are other running backs I prefer to take over him, but if you look at other positions, there's significant cost to taking him because you need him to outproduce guys in a value perspective like Calvin Ridley, A.J. Brown, Dak Prescott, David Johnson, Robert Woods, Jonathan Taylor, McLaurin, Metcalf, Chark, like all those guys. And I feel like the odds are like 0% that he just beats all of them, that he just goes out there and he crushes on the Jets, right? Because the Jets aren't going to win very many games. They have a bottom 5 offensive line. They drafted a running back who's great in the receiving game. They signed Frank Gore, who's going to take some touchdowns, some early down work. Like Bell already had 311 touches last season, including 66 receptions, and he was still only the running back 20 in points per game. So I don't see a ceiling. I can't justify the pick. But it's not like you should be drafting Gore or LaMichael Pirine anyways, right? Because neither of them have a ceiling. So I'm just avoiding that entire backfield. The Jets are not going to be good. They're not going to score that many points. And their offensive line isn't that great. So when you're not up late and your line stinks, they're not going to be very efficient either. But I think the biggest point in bringing up Bell is that you got to think about the opportunity cost with every pick. Like, sure, he could finish as a running back 18. You look back at this video and you're like, oh, see, he outperformed his ADP. Well, technically, but did you really want him? Because if he is the running back 18 overall, it probably means he was closer to the running back like 25 in points per game. And when you're looking at what you're passing on, these mid-range wide receivers are incredible values, and they're going to stay values because it's not like they can move up, right? Like, there's so many awesome wide receivers. You can't just shift that entire group forward because the running backs are awesome too. And so it just sets up beautifully in drafts to where you take at least 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds, and you just make sure when you get to rounds 4, 5, 6, 7 that you're not like, oh no, I took wide receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks early. I have to take running backs now. I can't get these great values at wide receiver. Do not put yourself in that spot. Grab the running backs early. They're honestly all awesome. Like, I know we kind of nitpick a little bit. Basically, every single one of the top like 15 running backs is awesome. They're going to produce unless they get hurt. They're going to have big roles. Sure, there are ones that we favor over other guys, but just take them. Just take whichever one we have ranked higher in your first 2 picks, honestly. And unless you're taking Michael Thomas or Adams. Basically, if your first 2 picks, you're taking those running backs. Maybe in the 3rd round, you take another one, and then just hammer wide receiver. You got to be getting these awesome values at wide receiver because they're values. They should not be going this late, but they have to because there's so many of them, and you can't just take 35 players in the top 20. So that's my take on a number of different backfields. Of course, I can't talk about every player in every video, so if you want my take on all players, as well as my exact rankings, you can check that out at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. That's the end of this one. Hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new? Thanks for watching.